All right, so good morning, everybody. This is Bridget Patton with Soul Massages, and it has been quite some time since I've done a live video. However, this morning I was in ceremony and I was meditating on the creation of the sanctuary that many of you know or are involved in um, within the Soul Embodiment Tribe and even outside of it. There's a lot of people that are a part of the sanctuary who don't even have Facebook. Um, so anyway, I was doing a card pull this morning, and the card that I drew was Kali Ma. And so Kali Ma is someone who came to me in, I think it was September, October of 2019. And if you aren't familiar with Kali, she is known as the Great Destroyer and also the Great Creator, because obviously in the circle of life, there's a balance of destruction and creation. There's always a balance of a breakdown and a building up. It's all in nature. You can look at the trees that shed their leaves and then grow new growth in the next season. And so as humans, we're really no different than that. And so many of the card pulls that I've been doing when asking for guidance for leadership in the sanctuary, we continue to get these messages of revolution. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because when I'm in session and I have people reaching out to me, clients, colleagues, anybody that is really conscious and aware of what's going on in our world and how things are changing and shifting, the term revolution continues to come up. And so I wanted to do a little video about that so that we can understand what kind of a revolution are we undergoing right now. So when you look at revolution, it has to do with a change typically in leadership or hierarchy, the way things are structured. And as we know already, our systems are rapidly shifting. And whether we have witnessed the full changeover in the physical, we can feel it in our bodies. And so the invitation here is, number one, to remember that right now humanity in general is going through a great mutation. We are going through an awakening, a remembering. And so as our memories surface, you tap into your emotional intelligence and deep inside of yourself to understand what is being communicated. When I say what is being communicated, I'm not talking about I'm feeling this certain way and it's because of something outside of me that I'm feeling this way. That is the very beginning of awakening. Being able to identify that I feel a certain way and then also detaching from what it is outside. Now, we have many, many opportunities that activate and trigger us externally, but it's also we can remember. We are remembering different times in history, or we're remembering what we came here to do in our mission, because everything is stored inside the template of our being, inside of our bodies. And so the way the mind works with the body is very crucial for our soul to be able to reside within our vessel and do what it came here to do. And the way that we train and we learn to navigate here in this third dimensional reality is we tap into these emotions, and we do it most often when we're connecting with other humans. And this is because each one of us has a different blueprint and different template, because we carry the stars, the dust of the stars within us. And so we are illuminated differently, each and every single one of us. And so when we come into contact with each other, we essentially create a portal opportunity, an opportunity for us to remember together how to use this energy, how to interact with this energy together. Now, in the sanctuary, we have been practicing this for at least the last year and a half on purpose, intentionally. And when I say that, I mean every single person, whether we're triggered or activated or whatever it is able to speak to these emotions and recognize and not place blame on anything that's outside of us. That's that whole victimization mentality. I'm not talking about real, actual things that have happened that we have been, had circumstances in our lives because it's a product of the way that our society is run. That I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when we're in a relationship and we have an emotional trigger because this person did something to us or what have you, and now we're having some sort of blame energy that's going on and cycling. Well, this is what's shifting. It's witnessing one another in our power and thinking to ourselves, okay, if I'm able to change my thought processes and my belief systems, then I have to also recognize that I'm going to mirror and attract others in who are also capable of doing this, and opening our hearts up and giving us permission to be able to do that. And this is the system that we're changing. This is the system where it's regenerative, it's sustainable, and it starts with our intimate relationships, those relationships that really trigger us. If we don't have a deep, intimate connection with multiple people in our inner circle, then there's work to be done. There is so much work to be done. And I will say that there are many, many, many human beings out there that have done this inner work in such a beautiful way. And they show up. They show up and they own their own stuff and don't take things personally. And they take responsibility for that power. And this is the structure of the hierarchy that's shifting. So the prediction, which isn't a prediction at all, I'm just calling out what's already happening. What is unfolding right now in our reality is that leadership, or what appears to be our leadership, if you're witnessing any type of, at any time, blaming or, disempowerment in any way, or anything like that, that is evidence of the system falling apart. That system, whatever the system is. It's evidence that it's falling apart because that isn't the way, and this isn't what is happening going forward. And when Kali Ma comes on the scene, it's because she has the ability to really, she's the warrior that doesn't stop. She is relentless. There are a series of events taking place energetically within our solar system that are changing the way that the dynamics within our bodies are working together energetically. And so the way our brains are functioning is changing. There is a dramatic shift happening in the way that we think and the way that we respond and the way that we act out what we're responding to. It's happening whether we, I don't want to say whether we participate or not, but it's true. Like regardless, it is happening. And the more aware you are and the more conscious you are, the less you're able to ignore it. It's going to feel like I have to do this. Like I can't not do it because it nearly drives you crazy trying to ignore it because the energy is just so potent and it's like knocking on the door. It's like when you hear something screeching in the background and you're trying to ignore it so that you can finish a conversation you're having. And then finally it's like, I need to go see what this noise is. And so this is the same thing that's going on right now. And Kali Ma comes and moves through with great destruction as a warrior. But I will also add the warrior energy now is about taking that power and doing the deconstruction within your own body. So the solitude that a lot of us have had, once again, it's rewiring our thinking, rewiring the way that our brains are working, but it causes a lot of self-reflection because now we're not as worried about things going on outside of us. We're able to pull back away from those influences in a way that previously we hadn't been able to do. So now collectively, we're all being relieved of a program that we didn't really even, a lot of us, recognize that we were still participating in. And so now that a lot of that, you hear about the veil thinning and the veil dissipating, that's what's happening. And it's because the alignment of the way that the planets are and the stars are landing on our genetic, our hologenetic aura differently. So it's illuminating us and giving us an opportunity to move from that carbon-based template to a crystalline-based template. Now, crystalline, when you look at your connective tissues, it's made up of silica, and silica is just like the threads of crystal and crystal diamonds, that kind of thing. It is able to channel very high frequencies. And so when we look at the human body and it transmuting into a crystalline type structure, it's very exciting because that means that we as a collective are able to hold onto the understanding of these higher frequencies. So that's really exciting because that also gives us access to, the angelic realm. And, a lot of people are able to communicate with their loved ones on the other side. And so, like, those dimensional shifts are becoming very thin, and we're able to tap into them and listen with clarity, with coherence. And so, this is an invitation for everyone really to lay down their sword, lay down their spear. This was a message that I got right before Kali Ma came in the summer of 2019. My son found an arrowhead in his sandbox from sand that was moved onto, from our property into the sandbox. And when I held this relic in my hand, the message was, lay down your spear. So in any situation where I feel like I need to step in and, put my 2 cents in or save someone or whatever, I gripped onto that spearhead and I let it just dig into my hand to just remember the message, because it can feel very convicting when we witness someone else doing something a different way. Or, I hear so many people in relationships that are arguing about, whether it's political or it's how am I going to care for my body, or what am I being asked to do to my body? What am I being asked to act out because someone else tells me that I need to do XYZ, or someone else has a different belief system. And so we're being asked to demonstrate complete acceptance. And we do that by having complete acceptance for ourselves. And a lot of the time when we're, projecting onto someone outside of us, like, oh, I can't believe that person voted for that president, or I can't believe XYZ about this other person. And it's a conviction within ourselves, because if each person is a mirror of ourself and this person believes something different, then do I really believe what I think I do about myself? It's like, we don't need to change the people in our intimate relationships just because it's triggering us. Having acceptance of each individual person's vision and trust that each person's role and what they came here to do is very different, even if we're on the same path, even if we're noticing each other along the way. And you can imagine, like, a whole bunch of people traveling down one pathway. There's actually one town over a path that you can ride your horse on, and we will see people, pushing a baby stroller, or there might be someone riding their bicycle. I'm typically riding my horse down those trails. But each vehicle of transportation, like, we may see the similar landscape as we're traveling, but the way that we're traveling down it is going to look very different. And based off of our vantage point, we're going to experience something totally different. And just because one person has a different experience going down the same path doesn't make it not valid. Like, we can validate one another, even if it's a totally different perspective. Like, think about that. Oh my gosh, that's revolutionary. Having complete acceptance for the other. When you look at the other, it's a mirrored reflection of a memory inside of us that we are being asked to transmute. And we have many memories from the very beginning of what our DNA stores in our memories. And it comes up and it surfaces, and our brain is only interpreting, really, typically, unless you've trained for it, it's going to have memories from this lifetime that it's going to connect that feeling to. So, like, the very first time I was capable of feeling this emotion, or someone else passed that emotion onto me by projecting. So now I'm carrying that around with me until I'm mature enough and conscious enough to either transmute it. So it comes up because we think, oh my gosh, why is this thing coming up again? I thought I mastered this. Well, no, we're not ever going to stop having these feelings. They're going to keep coming up, and we reprogram what we're feeling each time it comes up. And then when you get to experience it with multiple people, now you're creating a whole new grid work of responses for that energy. And I'll give you an example. So I use jealousy almost all the time. So I'll use jealousy as an example. Maybe I feel jealous of this other person and what they have. And then I admit I say this to this other person. And, you know, we aren't blaming or anything like that. It's like, wow, I noticed that I felt jealous of what you're experiencing right now. And the mirrored reaction or response is empowerment. Like, oh, if you have the energy or the acknowledgement, the consciousness to recognize that you are jealous, that also means that you have the power to create a version of what's happening over there for yourself that's even better than what you're witnessing in this other person. But it's a letting go of something inside of you. So that's why it feels like jealousy. It feels like a lower vibration, a destructive energy. But it's meant to be taken inward so that we can break down a belief system or whatever it is, a limitation that we think that we have that's holding us here instead of allowing us to pivot and see what step we need to take to also achieve that energy or what we're witnessing them having in their physical life. So these acts are revolutionary. It's transformational and it's done from a place of love. And I say this all the time, and I'm going to say it again. Everything happens energetically before it happens physically. So we have to be able to lean into those feelings and emotions and create something different by changing our responses. We create a different pattern by changing our responses. And so when we feel the letting go energy, which, you know, it could be anger, it could be anxiousness, all of these emotions are, I need to let go of something. I'm breaking something down. It's catabolic. And sometimes it's breaking down the belief system that I can't set a boundary, that I'm not allowed to set a boundary with, it's really ourselves. Like I'm setting up a boundary so that I can flow naturally as I am. And when I say setting up a boundary, that just means I'm filling my reality so much with who I am and believing in myself and my worthiness that I'm attracting people who are also of those belief systems and are able to, you know, work through those energies, emotions, experiences together. Now, just because we're having conflict or contrast in our relationships, that doesn't mean that we're not attracting what we need. The contrast and the conflict is what's showing us what we still are moving through and breaking down as a collective, as a culture, as a society, even within our familial structures. And so if we're noticing something happening, it's like, of course, it's going to happen with people that we love so deeply because it's going to show us how to have that complete acceptance. So we may see it happening with our parents or our spouse or our children. And it's getting closer and closer to home because it's showing us how to become revolutionary starting in our own households. And this is why we built the sanctuary communities, because this is what is replacing the hierarchical structures that are going on right now. So as we lean in and we, you know, dive off the cliff into the unknown and we continuously just keep taking one step in front of the other when we listen to that prompt, even if we don't know what the next step's going to be, because we can't see what we're creating because it shows us what we're creating. You have to feel it because you can't see until it happens in the physical. And so you can daydream, you may receive messages and daydream, and it seems like maybe you're fantasizing about something that's possible, but really you're just picking up on a thread, a frequency that is there and that's available for you to tune into, just like changing the radio station so that you can be what you came here to be. And if you're thinking, oh, I don't know what I came here to be. Well, you don't know what you came to here to be, but you can feel when you are being it. And that's the key. It's, can you allow yourself and give yourself permission to be what you came here to be? So I popped a link of the Soul Embodied Sanctuary over here in the comments, and I invite any of you guys that are resonating with this message, that are just curious about what we're doing in there and how we are participating in this revolutionary time. We would love to have you and be a part of it in whatever capacity you're feeling led to. So I love each and every one of you. I hope that you guys have an amazing weekend, and I will see you in the next video.